What's up, everybody? Eric here, Mr. Fired Up Wealth. Excited to bring you Coinbase today. This is going to be a direct listing on the Nasdaq, April 14th. This Wednesday, you will be able to buy shares of Coinbase. Ticker is going to be COIN. That's coin. Now, I'm going to do something completely fresh, something new for you. I'm going to mix it up. I listened to the last earnings call. I've gone through the S1. I've read most of that. I've read everything I can on the internet. And I'm trying to give you a concise video that gives you the information I think is most relevant as an investor. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read through my notes. I'm holding a notebook that has about 5 pages of notes, and I'm going to go through this as best I can, explain what I've learned, share it with you, and kind of give you a visual. There's going to be no video recording this time. Just something different, kind of a screen share. So let's get into it. They just had an earnings call, which is kind of unusual. It's pretty unique to have an earnings call right before you do a direct listing like that. But I think it's a good opportunity for us as investors to try to get a little bit more insight into the business before we make a decision if we want to buy the stock and add it to our portfolio. So Coinbase, first and foremost, they talk about that. So they essentially did this earnings call, and it was just really a mock interview with the CEO, Brian Armstrong, as well as the CFO. And I'm going to go through some of the highlights of really what they talked about on this earnings call. You can listen to it yourself as well, but this is going to give you all the highlights right here. So their mission, and there's a lot more to it than this, but the simplistic way to stay it really, their mission is they want to increase economic freedom in the world. Brian Armstrong read the Bitcoin white paper back in 2010. It was originally published in 2008, and his mind was blown, and he basically wanted to start Coinbase. He's a very good leader. He's very passionate about the cryptocurrency industry, which gives me a lot of confidence as an investor. Now, Coinbase, the first thing you're going to notice when you start doing some due diligence on this is they're much more than just a trading platform for retail. They're getting much more into institution, and there's some other things I'm going to talk about later in the video, and you're going to want to hear about the things that they're working on. So 56 million users, that's what they recorded here at the end of Q1 2021. This is literally from a week back, 56 million active users. Now, their total addressable market, their TAM, what they said on this earnings call, Brian Armstrong, he said, our TAM really is anybody with a smartphone, which is 3.5 billion smartphones and counting. So they have a huge TAM in their eyes. Now, the crypto market cap right now is $2 trillion. Now, of that, 55%, so over 1 trillion of that, is Bitcoin. And right now, Coinbase has 108 unique assets, meaning different types of cryptocurrencies you can invest in, you can buy and sell. And that's up from only 40 at the end of 2019. So they are adding more and more different assets. Now, they have a track record of very repeatable innovation. And Brian Armstrong talked about on the call how that's a focus of theirs. They want to make sure that they maintain that innovation so that they can stay ahead of the curve and make sure they have return on investment for their investors that are going to be buying their shares of stock. And he is a huge insider. He's got a lot of skin in the game, so he wants this to be successful. So first and foremost, they said they want to add even more assets for retail. So 108 unique assets or different cryptos. They want to add even more, which I think is interesting, and I think it's good. Now, institutional is going to be huge. I'll talk more about institutional later in the video here, but they're investing even more money into their prime brokerage to try to grow this part of their business. The third part of their business, so there's really 3 pillars. There's retail, there's institutional. The third is ecosystem partners. And this is one that maybe you don't know about if you haven't done a lot of deep diving into Coinbase. But essentially what Brian called it was the AWS, or the Amazon Web Services for crypto. And really what it does is it's a product that allows Coinbase Coin to offer what they call crypto infrastructure as a service. Why not? We've got software as a service, platform as a service, battery as a service, everything as a service. Now we've got crypto infrastructure as a service. And they want to have that available for developers and companies so that these companies can sell to their end clients. And if you watch the Snowflake video, they're doing something very similar. This is becoming more and more popular in the business world, and I think it's a great opportunity for Coinbase as a growth accelerator for them. They're also investing heavily into cybersecurity. If you know anything about Coinbase, they already have heavily invested into their cybersecurity with things like vaults. So I actually have a Coinbase account. I've got my Bitcoin in there, and you can basically buy it and put into a vault. And they've done a lot of different things to try to improve and enhance their cybersecurity. They're continuing to spend more money on that, as well as intellectual property. Right now, Coinbase, as of a week ago on this last report, they have $223 billion in assets on their platform, meaning, $223 billion of different crypto that users and institutions have essentially stored with their platform. That's up from $90 billion at the end of 2020. So literally in that one quarter, they went from 90 billion to 223 billion. The question is, how sustainable is that? And I'll get more to that here in a minute as we go on through the video. So here's the thing. Cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is becoming more mainstream. Coin is really a trusted company. It's really the most well-known company. I'm going to talk later about what their market share really is. And they're 100% focused on cryptocurrency. And investors, individual investors, retail investors, most people trust them with their money, and institutions trust them with their money. And so obviously that's a good thing, and they're continuing to grow. So next on this earnings call was the CFO. Her name is Alicia Haas. And she talked about how we're at all-time highs for cryptocurrency, of course, and mentioned specifically that Bitcoin was almost up 100% year to date. So the beginning of 2021, we started at $29,000 for the price of one Bitcoin. And that actually went from 29,000 to 59,000 at the end of Q1. So nearly a double. And Ethereum has more than doubled in this quarter alone. Of course, with NFTs, we know there's a lot of talk and a lot of hype around Ethereum as well. And Mark Cuban's somebody that actually has invested more money in Ethereum than Bitcoin and thinks it's, the future. And I actually own a little bit of Ethereum as well. I think both of those cryptos have opportunity. For me, they're spec investments, but I kind of like this Coinbase because it's a way for me to get more exposure into cryptocurrency, but more of the pick and shovel type of an investment. So she talked about all-time highs, talked about the prices. Now they have 56 million verified users. 56 million verified users at the end of this quarter. And I mentioned earlier the assets on Coinbase is 223 billion. So that's 11.3% of all crypto market share. So of all the cryptocurrency assets on planet Earth, 11.3% are housed within Coinbase, which I think is impressive. Now, this is also interesting. Out of that $223 billion of assets that Coinbase has, 122 billion of the 223 billion is institutional money. That's a big number. I think some people will be surprised by that. Their trading volume was $335 billion in the quarter. Total revenue, $1.8 billion in the quarter. Total income, between $730 and $800 million. And their adjusted EBITDA was $1.1 billion for this most recent quarter. So next, Alicia talked about price cycles. And this is really important if you want to invest. You need to understand how the business is cyclical, because it's been a very cyclical market with cryptocurrency. So in Q1 2021, they had 6.1 million MTUs. And you say, well, what's an MTU? So I'm going to go back. An MTU is monthly transacting user. So that's a user that does at least one trade within a 28-day period. They talk about that in the S1. So again, this most recent quarter, Q1 of 2021, they had 6.1 million MTUs. That's 2.3 times higher than Q1 of 2018, where they only had 2.7 million MTUs. That's a big boost. And the business, guys, at the end of the day, the business model, it's impossible to predict. I love the business model, but it's impossible to predict. They even tell you this. The CFO tells you this on the last earnings call. And what they did is they basically gave us 3 scenarios for the rest of 2021. They gave us a best case scenario, call it the high scenario, where the average 2021 MTUs would be about 7 million. But that assumes 2 things. It assumes, number 1, an increase in crypto prices for the rest of 2021. And that number 2, there's high volatility, meaning it doesn't go in a straight line. It bounces, up and down, but continuously moves higher. The reason that high volatility is important is the more volatility, the more trading, the more trading, the more revenues for Coinbase. So 7 million MTUs, assuming that the prices continue to go up and that there's volatile movement and lots of trading. Their second scenario, their midterm scenario they gave us, was 5.5 million MTUs. That's essentially a flat market cap for the rest of the year and moderate volatility. And the third scenario they gave us was 4 million average MTUs. And they call that similar to the year of 2018, where there was actually a decrease in crypto market caps. There was a decrease in prices and a decrease in interest and less activity. So worst case, 4 million, best case, 7 million. The mid-range is around 5.5 million MTUs. Good information to know if you're looking to possibly invest. The other thing they talked about on the call was something called ARPU. That's the average net revenue per user. Over the last 2 years, that's averaged between $34 to $45 a month. And here's the institutional business part I promised to talk about more. Now, it's growing fast, but they said on the call that it's in its early stages. And what this really is, you think of institutional businesses, this is hedge funds, pensions, so like a state pension plan, et cetera, insurance companies. These companies, these institutions are using Coinbase to invest for their clients and for their investment vehicles. And this is really big news, and this is something where they can grow a lot. They also talked on the call about expenses, and this is important. So they said on the call that they're essentially in their early stages and they're still investing in growth. Just like most growth companies, they're going to invest back in the business. They told us to expect fluctuations in revenue and profit based on crypto demand, and it's really hard to predict. And this quote is interesting. They told us on the call, in quotes, that they seek to roughly break even in terms of profitability over time. Quotes, seek to roughly break even in terms of profitability over time. That's important to note as an investor, that a lot of people, I think, assume they're just going to be profitable right away. They're telling us they're going to spend more and more money back into the business to try to grow. For the rest of 2021, their plan is that sales and marketing will basically be between 12 and 15% of net revenue. And their direct listing cost, of the money it's going to cost them to essentially go public, is $35 million, of course, a one-time fee. Okay, guys, so a couple last quick things, and I'm going to give you my final comments, my final thoughts. So a couple things I wanted to note from this Motley Fool article. Coinbase has listed 114,850,769 shares of stock. We don't know exactly how many will be available for sale. We don't have an exact price. I'm going to talk about valuation here in just a second. So Coinbase is valued at roughly $68 billion on private markets, but that rises to more than $100 billion when including Coinbase's fully diluted share count. The other thing I want to point out from here, Coinbase boasts more than 56 million individual users that we already covered, 7,000 institutions, and 115,000 partners in over 100 countries, giving the platform an unmatched ecosystem that caters to every level of cryptocurrency enthusiasts. I thought that was really powerful and something to share. And then a couple last things to cover here. Now, this is directly from CoinDesk, and it talks about, so New Constructs, an investment research firm, estimates that the U.S. cryptocurrency exchange valuation should be closer to $18.9 billion. And then it says here, Delphi Digital, a digital asset research firm, calculates a Coinbase valuation between $160 billion and $230 billion if the stock can command above average price multiples. Earlier this week, D.A. Davidson estimated the market cap at $90 billion. Coinbase's direct listing will trade on the Nasdaq exchange under the ticker COIN on April 14th, which we already talked about. And there's quite a bit of information on here. You know, research firm also stated it's not implausible that the stock could trade it closer to 15 to 20 times forward sales, which would imply a roughly $172 billion to $230 billion total market value. Maintaining high valuations will depend on Coinbase's ability to attract millions of new users. Verified users grew 23% between 2018 and 2019, another 34% between 2019 and 2020, reaching 43 million. And we know that number went up over 56 million at the end of March 2021. Growth in new users contributes to margin growth and overall profitability. Coinbase estimates 1.8 billion in total revenue for 2021 on 335 billion in traded volume. That's what the exchange said Tuesday. However, Delphi cautioned that Coin could be subject to market risk, especially as growth stocks continue to struggle in relative value to the peers. Valuations for growth stocks are trading at significant premiums relative to historic averages. So estimated total market, you can see here, there's some different ratios, price to sales ratio and total revenue. And so you can kind of see on your screen here what some of those numbers might be. I'm going to, be updating the community the best I can. Of course, if you're in Discord, we're going to be updating as more information comes out. We're expecting to hear more information Monday and Tuesday, and then we'll have the ability to buy this direct listing on Wednesday. So making this video to help with due diligence and just the information that we have at our fingertips right now, but we don't have all the information quite yet at this point. So I'm going to give you next my final thoughts. According to new constructs, Coinbase would need to produce compound annual growth of 50% over the next 7 years, yet Nasdaq's greatest 10-year revenue growth rate was just 21%. So, what this is telling me is that, first and foremost, I like the management. Secondly, I like the opportunity. I think it's a massive opportunity for a long-term investment. I think this is very similar to something like a Snowflake IPO where there's a lot of hype behind it. It's probably going to be really expensive. I think if I decided to buy the stock, I would probably just nibble a little bit, dollar cost average. Maybe I'd buy a fourth or fifth position. It's hard to say. With something like this, here's the thing. It could take off and just fly because, maybe just to give you a hypothetical example. A hypothetical example could be that the retail traders that normally don't buy stocks, that just trade cryptocurrency, they might say, hey man, I like Coinbase. I've been with them a long time and I'm going to invest in this stock, even though they normally don't invest in other stocks. I have a cryptocurrency pro who's a friend of mine who's in our Discord group. And I talked to him privately and, he would buy this stock, even though his entire portfolio is essentially cryptocurrency. So I think it's going to be really hard. This is going to be a hard one to play. I don't have a crystal ball. I think I'm going to probably just buy some of it. And if it runs, it runs. If it goes down, I can always dollar cost average. What ends up happening sometimes with these is you just don't get as much as you originally want. I'm not trying to tell you how to buy. So, don't get it twisted. I'm not here to tell you how to buy. If you love this, stock, do your thing, do what's best for you. I just think there's some risk here with the valuation that it might get pumped up. You could see a pop and drop. It's just really hard to say. So I would play this one a little bit cautiously. If you're following, if you're subscribed to the channel, I'll try to give you guys updates on this video. I'll come in and drop comments. Also, if you're in Discord, I'll be dropping comments in our channels there. We've got a channel for direct listings, IPOs, and we also have a channel for cryptocurrency, and I'll try to keep you posted in both of those channels. But please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit me a like button, smash the like button, drop me a comment. I appreciate your time and attention. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.